Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us from Nashville. We have Julie Eddy. How's it going today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's getting to be the right time in Texas where that temperature's starting to work itself out a little bit, and
Yeah.
I'm just so happy to be here.
Where are you in Texas?
I live in Waco.
Oh, love.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. It's a giant culture difference. I grew up in South Chicago, so it's like a huge
Wow.
culture difference. But you know what? I'm loving it. So
Good.
yeah. But glad to have you here. Glad to finally get to meet you and sit down and chat a little bit. I over the last month and a half, I've been really exploring Instagram more. And a couple of weeks ago, I ran across your page and started listening to your music. And I was like, all right, got to reach out to her. We got to get her on the podcast.
I'm
And it
glad to
just
hear
kind
it.
of worked out. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but so you're originally from South Dakota, correct?
South Dakota, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up there? Was music kind of always in your life or?
Yeah, I grew up in a really small town in South Dakota. So I grew up on the southeast corner of South Dakota, just like 18 miles north of Sioux Falls, which is the
Okay.
biggest city, if you
Yeah.
would even call Sioux Falls a city. There. I lived there the first like 25 years or so of my life. And then I moved to Minneapolis for a few years before moving to Nashville. But growing up in South Dakota, I always kind of joke it's a lot of like cows and corn and a whole lot of not really anything to
Yeah.
do. Music was always prevalent for me for sure. Both sides of my family. I have grandparents and both of my grandmothers were great singers and instrumentalists, and um, a lot of my family can carry a tune way better than they would like to admit, but I'm one of the few who chose to chase it as a career, so it's always been around, but I kind of as I like to do, just chose to take it to the next level, so here I
Fair.
am. Mhm.
What was there like a light switch moment or something that kind of triggered the thought in your head, like, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing? Like, obviously, you'd mentioned your
Yeah.
family was really good, but you obviously had a different pull to it.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever had that true like light bulb, like, okay, I've got to do
Yeah.
this forever for work. But I did have the light bulb of like, whoa, I really love this.
Yeah.
I started singing out in front of people when I was 10. Um, I've told this story before, but I have two younger siblings, and my younger sister, when I was 10 years old, came home from school and they'd learned the national anthem in music class, and she started singing it. And like a typical older sibling, I was quick to tell her she was doing it wrong. And so I started singing it to her in the kitchen, and my mom came out of the other room and said, "Who was just singing?" And I said, "It was me. She was doing it wrong," all this stuff. And she was like, "I think you really got something." So she drove me down to the high school, and I auditioned in front of the principal, and like a month later, I was singing the anthem at a high school ball game. I was 10 years old in my hometown, and shortly thereafter, I was singing at church and singing at fundraisers and things like that. And I was 12 years old when I saw my first concert. It was Martina McBride,
Nice.
and that was kind of the moment where I thought, "Holy cow! Like you can do this at that." I'd never
Yeah.
seen a live show like that
Yeah.
before. And so I just thought I have to do that. And so that kind of put the bug in. And that was kind of around the time that Taylor Swift was coming out with music.
Yeah.
So I was 12 then. And at 13, I got a guitar for my birthday and taught myself guitar. And kind of from there, the itch has just never been scratched. And I've just been chasing it. So
Nice. That's really cool. I love that. I love that story because
thanks.
I remember the first time that I went to a concert
Yeah.
and it was almost had the opposite effect because
Really?
it's it was like I went to a concert and it was like, oh man, there's no in between. Like you either got to be doing it
Yeah.
this big or not, or you can't do it at all. It was a really weird experience for me
Yeah.
because I went and saw Metallica when I was like 19 or 20.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good first
And,
concert.
and it was just like, dang, okay, I'm never gonna like whatever it is I do, I'm never gonna do it this big.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It almost had a weird after effect until I started meeting independent musicians and just like people in varying stages of their career. It's like, okay, you can do it, you know?
Yeah. I guess, it's funny because when I first started, when I had that itch of like, I have to be doing this, I had no idea what the in between was.
Mhm.
And I didn't for a long time. And so it was a lot of years of me just, sure, you want me to sing? Hell yeah, I'll be there, and just like figuring it out as
Yeah.
I went. And basically, anytime somebody said, hey, you want to sing? I would say yes and show up. And I had no idea about the business side of things or how to really write a song. I just tried to emulate all the people that I loved,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of years in the middle there where I just had no clue. I was just like shooting arrows out and hoped something would stick. And, you know, it
Mhm.
all comes out in the wash.
Fair enough. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been doing this podcast for 8 years, and it just in the last 6 months, I feel like I'm finally figuring it out. So,
Isn't it funny how that works? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying because it's like it was so simple. It's like I should have been doing this for the last 8 years, but
I have
it is
that
what it
feeling
is.
all the time. Yep.
So, oh, so how long have you been in Nashville?
So I've been here for 3.5 years almost. I moved in April of 2021.
Gotcha.
So
So now, did the pandemic play into the factor there? Were you trying to move before the pandemic, or
kind of.
okay?
So for about 2 or 2.5 years before I moved, I was doing kind of the back and forth thing that you
Right.
see a lot of artists do here. So I was living in Minneapolis and coming down. I ended up playing a writer's showcase in Minneapolis, met some songwriters from Nashville. They invited me down to come write. And I had been to Nashville once prior just for vacation. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to go work down there. I was so excited. So I came down, wrote a few songs, played a couple rounds, and just kind of got a fire lit under me. And so I came down, once a month, once every other month for those couple of years until COVID hit.
Mhm.
And up in Minneapolis, I was working full time as a personal trainer and fitness instructor, and then doing music. Sorry, this is my dog.
Hey,
She
we
just
get a lot. We
said
get a
hi.
lot of dogs on the podcast.
Yeah.
So
Um, so I was doing that and doing music kind of on the side, if you
Mhm.
will. And then when the pandemic hit, I lost my full time job, like so many of us did. And so I was doing the whole like live streams and Instagram lives and TikTok lives and all of that. And when things kind of started to open back up at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, I kind of just I was working a little bit again, doing fitness stuff and doing a lot of music stuff. And I just kind of thought, this is the best fresh start I'm going to
yeah,
get. So if I'm not going to do it now, when am I going to do it? And so my lease was up, kind of a
yeah.
lot of things just fell into place. And I thought, I'm just going to jump. So I came down here in, I think it was March of 2021, and was doing some work and recording and stuff, and went and toured an apartment, signed the lease that day, and I moved 3 weeks later. So
Nice,
it was just kind of a storm of things that ended up working out in my favor, which I'm grateful for.
nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, when you moved from South Dakota to Minneapolis, was that just like needing a change of scenery, or did you go to for like school or something?
Yeah, it was more so like a change of scenery. I
Mhm.
was in South Dakota. At that time I was doing hair full time. I'm like a cat. I've lived like 9 lives.
Hey,
So
that works.
yeah, we all do in the creative industry if you really think about it. But yeah, it was a little bit of a change of scenery. My sister lived in Minneapolis. My best friend from home lived up
Nice.
there. And my significant other at the time and I were just kind of like itching for
Mhm.
something new. And we truly looked at moving a ton of different places. And I really liked Minneapolis's music scene. I
Mm,
really liked it, felt like a natural stepping stone. Like I
yeah,
always wanted to get to Nashville, but like I mentioned earlier, I had no idea how to get there.
yeah,
What does it take? What do you need? And so it felt Minneapolis is just about 4 hours from where I grew up. So I was like, okay, I can still see my parents. I don't have to just like move and
yeah.
leave and start over. So it felt really natural. I loved the music scene. It felt attainable at the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, we chose there and I kind of just never looked back.
Nice. Because I don't think a lot of people realize the historic history of the music scene in Minnesota just in general. Like
Yeah.
Minneapolis, but in Minnesota in general, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of really cool stuff that happened there. And that's
Yeah.
got to be an interesting place to cut your teeth, you
It
know?
is. It is. And those first I always say those first like 6 or 9 months living there like really taught me. I
Mhm.
fell on my face so many times. I went to every open mic night. I went to all these shows. I would find out about bars up there that were either hosting open mic nights or just letting people play acoustic. And I went everywhere and just shook so many hands. And it really taught me, the like boots on the ground
Mhm.
way of like networking.
Yeah.
And there were so many places up there that I ended up playing for all of my years that I lived there where, you know, there was one place that like didn't have live music at all. And I remember going in and saying, have you ever thought about having live music? And the owner just so happened to be the person I was talking to.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, I'm live music. I'll do it for you and I'll do it for free the first time.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about money later. I played so many gigs for literally free and
Mhm.
just put out a tip jar. And I played so many gigs where the bar is completely empty, and it really taught me about like marketing
Yep.
and how to work a room and keep a crowd and grow a crowd and get people coming back. And it taught me so many valuable lessons.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where I think that that like mindset is kind of lost nowadays where everybody there's a lot of I'm not going to say everybody because that's such a blanketed term, but there's definitely this like feeling that if there's not money attached to it, it's not worth your time. And it's like, no, going to play that free show out of like, especially in this situation where you're talking about a venue that never did live music or never thought about doing live music, and you offered up a free show just to kind of
Yeah,
see if it works in the venue, because not every
yeah,
venue is like set up to do live music,
sure.
like it's depending on if it's a restaurant bar, like whatever it is.
Yeah,
But you took a chance, they took a chance, and
yeah.
it ended up working out. And I'm sure I'm hoping they brought you back for more paid gigs.
They did. And they
Yeah.
still have live music multiple times a week, that venue I'm speaking of. And
Mhm.
it's really cool to find when you work in that mindset, you find a lot of people who, if you're willing to take a chance and they're willing to take a chance, the sky's the limit. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So, yeah,
100.
it's some of the most like formidable years and time and shows.
Mhm.
They've made such a big impact on me and the way that I do business now. And, you get to a point where you hope you never have to play a free show again. But right when you're starting out, you gotta, if you're not going to take a chance on you, who's going to?
Right.
So, yeah, I loved it.
100%. So, at what point did you kind of start releasing? Like, I'm kind of guessing you were writing music all or throughout this entire process, but when did you kind of start releasing music?
Yeah. So I started writing music right when I got my guitar. Like
Mhm.
I was 13 and I pray to the Lord that those songs never see the light of day. If somebody has a recording of them somewhere, just keep it to yourself. But I released my very first song back in 2016. It is no longer on streaming services. A few years back, did a little bit of a rebrand and needed to, as you grow and
Yeah.
change. So I released a number of songs between 2016 and 2020. A couple of EPs and a couple of singles. And then in 2020, I released an 8-song project that COVID kind of placed into my lap. I had nothing else to do. So
Yeah.
I was in the studio and cutting vocals in my closet and like crazy stuff. Um, so that was a learning curve in and of itself. And then when I moved to Nashville, I released a couple of singles. Yeah, it's just been like going like crazy since then. I've tried to at least release one thing a year since I
Nice.
started releasing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool. That's really cool. You know, you say you hope that those early recordings never see the light of day
yeah,
again, but I think there's something to the idea of revisiting those songs, not necessarily releasing them as they currently sit, because I'm sure back in the day, especially with how the industry has changed and technology has changed,
yeah,
I'm sure, yep, at least want to remix. But what I'm saying is just kind of revisiting these song ideas and seeing
yeah,
if you can kind of format them so that they work for like who you are now as a musician.
yeah, yeah,
So
you're totally right.
it good. Sorry.
Oh, I just was gonna say a lot of those song ideas, thinking back to my earlier songwriting, they were definitely reflective of whatever I was going through at the time, which when you're young
Yep.
are the things that you go through when you're young love and, friendship drama and, whatever else it might be. But there's always something in a song that like can make it timeless.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Oh, so where are you kind of at creatively right now? I know you released two EPs in 2023,
I did.
but what have you kind of been working on this year so far?
I've been working on a lot. I'm really excited. I have been in the studio recording my first full length album. I am doing a 13 song album that I'm really, really proud of. Um, and it's all coming very, very soon. There's a bunch of singles and um, a whole bunch of album tracks. I've been writing for this project for a long time, and I've been
Yes.
waiting to kind of really build together kind of like the debut
Yeah.
project. Um, I always knew it was coming somewhere along the line, and I've had songs that I've written years and years ago that I've kind of just been tucking in my back pocket,
Yes.
knowing that I wanted to save them for something like this. And then there's songs that are on it that I wrote like 3 weeks ago that I thought the project was done. Oh, there's my dog. This is Nyla. um, I thought the project was done, and then I wrote another song, and I'm like, you guys, it's not done.
Right.
And so I'm really excited. I've been working with my producer, Brad Hill. He's absolutely incredible and a great friend. We've worked together on my music and artists that I've written for's music for years. And he has just been really instrumental in giving me space and creative freedom to like chase the sound that I want and the
Nice.
whole package like brand that I want and all of that. So big things coming. I'm very excited.
Nice. You'd mentioned that this is like the writing, because obviously writing for an album, that there's like several different ways you can kind of attack it. It's
Yeah.
like you just kind of start writing specifically for an album, and the 13 songs that come out of like whatever it
Yeah.
is. But from the sounds of it, you've just kind of been writing, and then as you kind of feel a song would fit a project, you kind of, okay, we're not going to record this one right now, but we're going
Yeah.
to save this one over here.
Yeah.
It, how is that kind of, you just always knew that you were going to release a bigger project and it was just like pulling song, or how did you kind of
Yeah.
come up with that, I guess?
So truthfully, some of it is by happenstance.
Sure.
Some of it was like what I thought was completely planned out and then took another turn. Um, so some of these songs that as I mentioned, like tucked them in my back
Yeah.
pocket, some of them are songs that I have brought to the drawing board, if you will, like multiple times and said, okay, this is a single, this is a single, this is a single. And I would start the stages of recording them like multiple times
Hmm. Yeah.
and just thought, okay, I could do a project with this and I could do a project with that. And these three go together. Maybe I do a little EP with that. And, um, but it was this weird, like nothing ever felt finished
Yeah.
or right, even though I was in the very early stages of all of
Yeah.
it, I would just say, I don't know, something in my gut. It's just not the right time.
Gotcha.
And then this last spring, it was kind of like the end of April, beginning of May. I had just written this song, um, and this song is called "The Rug," and it's on my project. And something in me, I don't know, my tour manager and I were out on tour and we were listening to a bunch of work tapes and
Nice.
startings of recordings of songs, just kind of listening to my whole catalog that was still available. And we both kind of had this moment where we looked at each other in the car. We were like playing shows and driving through the night to the next city and delirious off of no sleep. And we looked at each other and she said, I think you have an album. And
Nice.
I said, I think I have an album. And so we started just pouring over everything. And we were like, okay, this song, this song, this song. And what about this? And what about that? And do they really go together? And so we started just kind of compiling this list. And when I got home from that leg of tour, I continued pouring over all of it
Nice.
and got to this point where I thought, holy shit, I think I really have an album here. And so I texted my producer, Brad, and I said, I think you and I need to have coffee.
Nice.
And we had coffee, and I sent him all the songs before we went to coffee. And he said, I'm going to let you say it. And I said, I think I have an album. And he said, I think you have an album. And so we started I just jumped and I was like, okay, I guess I'm recording an album now. And they all kind of fit together very interestingly and very much in a way that I didn't expect them
Yeah.
to. And it's kind of turned into I'm such an album junkie, and the music business is not really like that these
Yeah.
days. It's very like single heavy and you jump from this topic to that topic. And don't get me wrong, these songs that are going on this project do jump around and they maybe in some people's minds don't totally fit together.
Hmm.
But when you hear the title of the album, which I will not share until we're ready to.
I won't ask.
Yes. But
These are, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, when you hear them all together and you hear the title of the album and you hear kind of the concept behind it, you're like, dang, I feel like they all fit together in a concept way
Hmm.
of, I feel like I've written a lot of really happy, lovey, like on a mountaintop type of songs. And I realized I've never written those songs from a place of where I am in life. It's always where I want to be. And like, let me create this world where all of that exists. And then all of my like really sad heartbreak, like, who am I kind of songs are written in real time when I'm
Nice.
really feeling those things. And so when we kind of put them all together and realized that correlation, I thought, holy crap, I think I did it without even knowing I did it. And then these last couple tracks we've been writing the last few months, I've written from the standpoint of like, all right, let's fill in the holes and let's complete the story. And I think we've done that. So I'm very excited.
Nice. So it kind of started as like I like how this whole story kind of played out because it started off as okay, this is all for one day down the road to actually panning out and like, oh, we have the structure of a full project here. We just got to fill in those gaps. And it
Yeah.
was like, it wasn't you trying to say, I
Right.
think I have an album. It was you bring it to somebody. It's like, I think you have it. So it was like a group consensus almost that
Yeah.
like this is what you need to be doing. Like this is what you
Yeah.
need to do with this. So
And that proves it rings true in every area of my life. Anytime that I've ever tried to like force something or make a square peg fit a round hole, it's
mhm.
never going to work. But when you just like open up your mind and your perspective and your heart to something and it really works, it's like, well, shoot, that was easy,
Right.
you know? So,
Nice, nice. So, um, that I'm sure you'll kind of update your Instagram and social media as
yes.
that's all gets announced. How often are you doing shows right now? Are you playing pretty consistently, or?
I am, yes. So I live right here in Nashville. I play Broadway almost like 6 days a week.
Oh wow.
I'm playing like somewhere between 6 and 9 shows a week right now. And then I tour quite frequently. So I will go on the road with various artists and open for them, or sometimes headline my own
Yeah,
shows. I'm doing that, sometimes it's 3 weekends a month, and sometimes it's one weekend a month. And I got lucky this August, and I'm here in Nashville all August. So I get to kind of have my home base and be in the studio and hang out with this little gal.
nice,
Um, and then we're back on the road in the fall. So
nice,
busy.
awesome. Well, I'm glad I was able to get you in because it sounds like this is like a rare open window to get
It
you
is.
in.
Yeah,
So
I was excited too. I'm glad this worked out.
yeah. Oh, so you're kind of playing all over or playing pretty consistently. So if anybody's in Nashville, I'm
Yep.
sure you post about it on Instagram and all that fun stuff. When you do get 2 seconds to yourself, what do you do to kind of decompress or just, outside of music?
Yeah, um I love just like being outside. Nashville's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come down here and they do the Broadway thing and they catch all the live shows, but there's so much more to this city. So honestly, when I am not performing, I love to be as low key as I can. I love to walk my dog all over the city. We have our route that we always take every morning. And before it gets too hot here,
Yep.
you can understand that in
Yep.
Texas. Um, I love that. I love to golf. I love
Nice.
to read. I really love to cook. So my favorite thing ever, if I get a night off, I have a grocery store that's like 6 blocks from me. So I'll walk to the grocery store and, get a bottle of wine and get all my favorite ingredients. And I put on my favorite records, and I've got a big old record collection, and
Nice.
cook dinner and just like have a simple night in. That's my favorite.
Nice. I'm trying to build out my vinyl collection.
Are
I,
you?
yes, it's hard because I want to like whenever I go to shows, I like to try and get like if an independent artist presses vinyl because I know that stuff is not cheap. I like to try and pick that up, but
Yeah.
I'm also trying to find like a good vintage shop that sells like
Yes.
maybe not even original pressings, but like just like good old music. But every place I go, it's just like whatever they picked up at an estate sale.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like I remember there was this one place I used to go to all the time. They would they always had like the whole bunch of bins, and it was just kind of like, okay, surf through it and find whatever you find.
Yep.
Except it was like 800 copies of Linda Ronstadt and
Yeah.
just like the most random things. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
What?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Linda Ronstadt is good, but you don't
Yeah,
need 800 copies.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where they were like, they were like cleaning. I was getting ready to move, and they were cleaning out their like vinyl collection because they had just gotten a new shipment in, and they're like, "Hey, you're in here all the time buying vinyl. We just put out on the side of the curb a whole bunch of vinyl out. Come and grab it if you want it." And
Oh,
drove over there. I was like, okay, cool. And it's all the Linda Ronstadt stuff. And I'm
yeah.
like, I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But
Yeah. I got lucky. I inherited my grandma, my mom's mom.
mhm,
and her siblings. Um, and my great grandma, I inherited all of their record collection.
Oh,
So I have like anything from like the Beatles
mhm,
to Willie Nelson to Keith Whitley to Kenny Rogers to everything you can imagine.
mhm.
Um,
I
and
wish I would have fought my mom to keep her
yeah,
vinyl.
yeah, I was like hell bent on it.
Yeah.
When my grandma was alive still, I was telling her, I'm like, if you ever get rid of this, because I even have the little 45s of
Mhm.
like when they were kids. It's
Yeah.
like Jack and the Beanstalk
Yep.
and like Cinderella. And
Yep.
my grandma used to tell all these stories. They didn't have TV. So they would sit around the record player, and that's how they knew all those stories.
Yeah.
So I have all of those. I have like, I mean, crazy, crazy old stuff. And then, of course, I've added my own favorites to it. So
Yeah.
I probably have 100 or 200. I've Bing
Nice.
Crosby, and I got so lucky with that. So I
Nice.
listen to all those when I'm cooking.
The 45s are really cool.
Mhm.
When I lived in Tallahassee before I moved to Texas. I lived in Tallahassee for a couple of years, and I was on eBay. I was starting to like this was like right as vinyl was starting to make a comeback. You could buy those little Victrola suitcase
Yes.
things at like Best Buy and all that stuff. Um, and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to get into vinyl. That'd be cool. And
Yeah.
so picked up one of those and I went on eBay and there was people selling lots of 45. So you didn't know what you were going to get, but it was like 50 45s for
Wow.
like $20.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Take my money. Let's see what we get.
Yeah.
I got the most random cool stuff. It was like demo artists cutting some big songs
Oh,
from like the 70s and 80s. So it's like somebody you've never heard of singing a song you've heard of because it was like a demo cut.
yep.
Or you would get radio cuts of artists, whatever their single was they were pushing at the time. And then
Wow.
on the B side, there would be some like random song you never heard of that isn't like on a CD or something like that. And so it was just like I've got like three Wayne Newton 45s in there. And
Wow.
it's just like it's really random. I didn't even know he like actually recorded music. I thought he just did like live stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
That's so cool. I do have my favorite vinyl I have is a press of, did you have Allstate Chorus where you
uh,
grew up?
all state
Heard of
chorus.
that? Like in high school, like in
Oh
Sarasota, it's like
yeah,
a quartet from each school, and they all come together throughout the state and put on a concert of, normally it's like classical music.
yeah.
I have my grandma's high school all state chorus concert that she sang in, pressed on vinyl.
Wow.
It's
That's
so cool. So that kind of stuff, I'm like, that's priceless.
nice. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It's like my dad, he did radio like he studied radio in high school and I remember listening to his recordings of his radio stuff and his jazz band coming in. And
Yeah.
it wasn't on vinyl, it was on the tape to tape reels.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Wow.
we were moving and he left or when we were moving out of one house into another house and he put all this stuff in my grandparents' basement, but the
Yeah.
basement flooded and all that stuff
Oh,
got ruined. And it's just
no.
like, dang, that it's just like that family stuff that you can't ever replace. And
Yeah.
it's yeah. So
Wow. That's so cool.
yeah.
I could go on forever about that. Yeah.
Right. 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 Um, but no, that's cool. Are you looking at the option of pressing vinyl for this upcoming project or
We are.
nice?
Yes. I'm very, very excited.
All right. I will have to write that one down. We'll have a
Yes.
completely offline conversation about that one. It's like
Absolutely.
I'm starting a notepad over here where it's like, okay, so and so's got vinyl dropping on this day, this day. Yep.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
um, cool. So kind of looking forward, what's your show schedule look like? Do you know your show schedule for like the rest of the month?
Yes, absolutely. So for the rest of August, I am here in Nashville, which I'm so excited about. It's nice to like be here and get to play all my favorite venues here in town. And then the first weekend of September, the 5th, I'll be in Lubbock. Actually, I'm coming to Texas.
That's
So I'll be in Lubbock, opening for Gary Allen on the 5th.
okay.
And then on the 6th, I'll be in Frisco, headlining the NAC Theater. And then we're coming right back to Nashville. And then September and October, for the most part, I have a few things out of town.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'll be here in town gearing up. There's a lot of new music coming this fall.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of photo shoots and video shoots, and we're gonna be doing a big showcase this fall in Nashville that'll be open to the public. So I'll announce that on my socials and my website. I keep my website up to date with my show schedule out as far as I can. So right
Nice.
now I think it's updated through October and it's changing all the time. So every time there's
Nice.
a change, I always update it there. Yeah, so for the rest of this year, we kind of got a few one-offs out of Nashville, but for the most part, I'll be here. And then we're hitting the road next year. We're going to be everywhere. So
Nice. That's really cool.
I'm excited.
Um, for anybody that wants to check out your music, what is your website, social media, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so my website is just julieeddy.com. Eddy is my last name. And then my Instagram is just julie.eddy. On TikTok, I'm Julie Eddy Music. If you type my name, there's no Julie Eddies in the world. I think there's one like book author out there named
Yeah.
Julie Eddy. That is not me. I have not written a book. It is on my bucket list, but not yet. Um, so yeah, if you type in Julie Eddy anywhere, you can find me all over.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to thank you so much for taking time to sit down and chat with me. It's been an absolute blast. And we'll have to talk about those Texas dates because that'll be so. But once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch y'all later.